wait, what do you mean my thoughts create my reality? He was the 5th kid that I got pregnant to. So I had 4 abortions prior to. If you're not passionate about food or nutrition, you just do this and it's gonna make you, it'll be good for you. They were not going to be understood. People were gonna say that they were hyper. People were gonna say they were depressed, but they're not. And I wanted to drink so bad that I started shaking and crying and begging her to let me drink.
What is up, sis? What's up? Welcome back home. Welcome to Girl We Got This. And happy International Women's Month, baby. I have an incredible woman here to celebrate this incredible month. Her name is Yvette Rose. She is a holistic coach. She's a founder, and she is so much more. I am so grateful that you joined us today. What's up?
You know, it's so cool to actually see you doing this because I listen to the podcast and it's like I'm now here. You know, it's like it feels surreal.
I appreciate you.
This is cool.
You know what I can say? I can say that you truly are one of my motivational factors because you believe in Girl We Got This. You see the vision. You see how important it is for us to share our stories. You see the resiliency in women, and sometimes we need to be reminded because it's so easy to forget. So I want to say thank you for honoring us in this platform.
Yeah, you know, when I met you and you told me about your podcast, I started listening to it, and it's one of the things that I listen to in my car. And it, like I said, it just gives you nuggets for the day, right? Listening to other people's stories, or sometimes when you read the love letters, it's just like those nuggets to inspire us or to keep us reminded that we're not here alone.
Yes.
And I think that's probably, you gave it the best name, Girl, You Got This, because sometimes, you know, I mean, launching a brand is really scary.
Yes.
And I'll be in my car and, you know, my husband called me the other day to give me feedback that people had on the bar, and some of it wasn't so great. And I was like, all right, thank you. And I hung up the phone and I was like, wow, that hurt.
Yeah.
And I started crying, and so you just think like, girl, you got this.
Yes.
You know, it's like, yes,
Yes.
okay, I got this.
Yes.
I got this.
Yes, and not to internalize that feedback, but we just gotta pivot.
Yeah.
We just gotta make something else shake.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, that's what I think life is all about. It's taking those pivots, right? And recognizing the areas when something triggers or when something shows up, it's because it's asking you to work on it so that you can heal it, so that it's no longer blocking.
So let's get into your life, because I feel like you are the queen of pivoting. I feel like where you came from, where you are now as a woman, sis, this woman has pivoted so powerfully in life, and I am so grateful to be able to be honored enough to share your story. So can we talk about where you were born and raised, what life was like as a young Yvette?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And then we were upgraded to the projects of Coney Island. So I lived in O'Dwyer Gardens for a long time. So the hood, raised by a teenage single mom, and a grandma and a titi. And my titi just passed away 2 days ago. She's 93, but yeah. So it's interesting because it's bringing up a lot for my family, and you can recognize those who have worked through their shit and healed, and those who are still stuck. So yeah, I was raised in,
Yeah.
It's hard for me to talk about myself.
Yeah, it's okay.
It doesn't feel comfortable.
It's a lot of us.
Yeah.
A lot of us have that.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have that, and I'm still actually learning. But you are the gift. Your story is what's going to inspire all of us. Coming from where you come from, growing up in the projects, growing up in the hood, and being able to say, this is where I am now, that was just a part of my life. That wasn't my story.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much power in that, because there's so many women and girls watching this right now that's in that same space.
Yeah.
You know, having that young mother. My mom was 17 too when she had me. Like, shout out to the young moms that did their best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the truth, you know?
Yeah.
There was a lot of difficulties with it and
That's
processing
right.
afterwards as an adult, but I finally found a fitted baseball hat that fits all of our hair texture. Yes, no more straightening, no more damaging our curls. You can actually nourish your hair in this baseball hat. Crazy, right? Let me show you. I'm obsessed with this color for spring. Check out the satin lining all inside here. These are your hair elastics. No more hair elastics on your wrist. No hat hair, no frizz. I thank God that was a part of my story, because I learned so much, and I know that's why we mirror each other so much.
Yeah.
So being born and raised in that environment, I know you met your love right after. So I think this is a beautiful way, because I want to get into motherhood, because I know this is why Joule Body and your holistic coaching really started. It was really in the motherhood pocket.
100%.
So you're in New York, you live in that New York City life, because we know how we do in New York.
Yep.
We're living. We're hot girls.
Yep.
We're living.
We're living our life. You know, it's funny, because it is about motherhood. Yes. You know, I just celebrated my oldest son's birthday the other day, and he was the 5th kid that I got pregnant to. So I had 4 abortions prior to him. Wow. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was already 12 weeks pregnant. And I had my appointment set for an abortion. So I was like, no way. I was a hot mess. I was not going to do this. Wow. And
how old were you?
I was 26.
Okay.
And my doctor said, Yvette, this is it. Like, once you do this, you will likely not be able to get pregnant. I said, dude, I'm all right with that. I don't want to be a mom. And that morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, I called my doctor and I said, I'm having this baby. And he's like, congratulations. And I hung up and I woke my husband up and I said, I'm keeping it. And he said, okay. And he went back to sleep. He was my boyfriend at the time. And I remember holding my belly and going, fuck, we are doing this. And at that time, I mean, I didn't know I was pregnant, because I was tripping on ecstasy and drinking and smoking cigarettes. So it was like I had absolutely zero connection to my body, zero. And when I made that decision, I said, I got to change everything. I have to, this baby did not have the best beginnings. And I started to think about, all right, what does that look like? Found a birthing center. Okay, great. I'm going to have my baby naturally. I'm not going to have any sonograms, ultrasound. I'm just, the bare minimum of intrusion that this baby can have is what I'm going to do. Still learning what it meant to eat healthy. You know, SpaghettiOs was microwave SpaghettiOs. That was my craving. So I can't say it was perfect, but I definitely, you know, I remember when I would heat up the SpaghettiOs at my job, everyone's like, it fucking smells like dog food. It's like, it's so good. The ones with the hot dogs in them, you know? You know, and having, you know, plátanos with Spam. You know, there were things that wasn't so easy to pivot out of, but I was making more conscious choices. And I didn't even dye my hair because I was afraid of anything.
So this is a really beautiful part of your story, because just acknowledging your son in your belly made a light bulb come off in your head, and everything started to slowly pivot.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Slowly. It was, I mean, you know, there was, I had to rewire so many belief systems that were so ingrained in me that you know, it was so deep rooted that it wasn't, you know, it was like something would happen and go, oh, okay, that's not going to be the right decision for him. And so everything was about him and how can I be better, do better. And, you know, I wrote him a letter, and it was a dark letter, but you know, I reminded him that we were going to do this together.
Yes.
And he was going to be my buddy, and it would all end up okay. gave birth to him early in a birthing center, and he was born sick. I hemorrhaged a lot of blood. I think this is also a reflection of the power of a mom. You know, the mom lifting the car up to get her kid underneath. I was hemorrhaging. My baby was being rushed to the hospital. I mean, I had been in labor for 24 hours. I pushed for almost 2 hours. So, like, I was really not even understanding everything that was happening. All I remember is my mom said, Evie, they have to take the baby to the hospital. And they have to take you to the hospital because you're hemorrhaging. And I said, okay, Mom, get me a gallon of orange juice and get me pads. They gave me a bunch of pads. I put the pads on, took a gallon of orange juice, guzzled it, and ran through a snowstorm to the hospital that he was at.
Wow.
And my husband went in the ambulance with him, with the baby. My mom and I went to the hospital, and he was there for a week in an incubator. Still to this day, no idea what it was. But he had a really rough beginning. You know, they injected him with antibiotics. Again, I didn't know anything about the medical system. I just trusted that they knew what was best for him. I would have done it much differently. But he never found out what happened. Eventually he came home, and that was the beginning.
Wow.
He cried for 6 months straight. All day, all night. So I quit my job. My husband was making no money, but I couldn't, there was no way I could go to work. I don't know who would have been able to handle him.
How did you handle it?
You had to love him.
How did you handle it?
I don't know. You know, it's like, it's funny because someone asked me, like, what inspired your brand? And I just remembered this one day. He was 4 years old. He was having a tantrum on the street. Threw himself on the floor, screaming, yelling. And I stopped, and I looked at him, and the ghetto girl wanted to beat the shit out of him. And then there was the girl that was healing, the mom, and me knew he wasn't regulating his emotions, and it had nothing to do with you. This was about him. And so I stood there, and I just let him scream and yell. And eventually, when he was exhausted, I picked him up, I carried him, and we went home. And I said, you know, when I created this brand for those moms to provide themselves self-love, self-care, when they felt no one else was. And that baby screaming and yelling, if I wasn't healthy in my physical and mental body, it would have been really bad for both of us, right? So motherhood is definitely my inspiration for life changes.
There's so many women right now that are listening that I know can relate to that story of their child and crying and not knowing what they're doing, not being ready, not being prepared, right? Growing and evolving as you have a human that's literally growing and evolving at the same time. How did you manage that? How did you, like, were there certain tips, there's certain books that you read, are there certain things that you can share with the audience that really helped you start to make that shift to healing, to become the best mother that you are, to be able to find this incredible company?
Yoga, honestly, yoga was what got me to step outside of this physical world and go within. And I learned, it was Ashtanga yoga, and I learned how to do the practice. So Ashtanga is a yoga practice that is the same sequence all the time. So once you understand the sequence, you don't have to think, you're just able to flow your body. And, you know, learning that trauma is stored on a cellular level and understanding that movement helps to shift that. And when you add movement and breath work, it's really magical. And just having that, like, hour and a half of just focusing on my breath and focusing on my body just helped me to like process what was happening, you know, because this baby, imagine, you know, I made a decision to have this baby. This baby is screaming, crying all the time, all day and night. He was 18 months when he finally slept through the night. And I tell you, he has all his grandparents. Everyone helped. I could not have done it alone.
Thank God
My dad would show up during his lunch break just to give me a minute to breathe. My mother-in-law, who lived across the street, would make it her business to make sure. I mean, there were moments I would show up and I would say, if you don't take him, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. And she was just an angel, really super patient. My dad was really super patient. You know, he had sensory issues, he had sound issues. There were so, and at that time we didn't know about spectrum. So my mother-in-law kept saying, there's something not right. And we would have him tested and they were like, nope, everything looks okay. But yet he wasn't able to walk until he was almost 2 years old. He was talking when he was 1. You know, like it was just, there was no way he was parallel playing till he was like 5 years old. I mean, he wouldn't look you in the eye. It was just clear that there was something off. And I remember thinking this was my punishment for the abortions that I had. Wow. You know, it just felt like, again, because I wasn't healed yet, I was taking it personal. It was making it like it was about me. But what I would say, the reason why I ended up going into nutrition is, as I was taking him to doctors, because he had lots of flare-ups, lots of digestive issues, every time I went to the doctor, I was like, I just don't feel like this is the right way. So I started learning about probiotics, and I started learning about eating more plant-based. And I would make him, I was really strict on, you couldn't put any lotions on him. I was really strict about anything you put on his body. I was really strict. He had aromatherapy. He had, when my mom hears this, she'll crack up, because we used to, whenever I gave him to his grandparents, he came with a list of what to do and what not to do. He played with wooden toys. He wasn't allowed to watch TV. He wasn't allowed to play on video games. I just really started to like dive deeper into like, how can I create a more holistic environment for this baby so that he can start to heal? Wow. It was clear he needed to heal from, you know, the gut microbiota. It's from grandma to mother to child. And it's grandma because while you're in your mother's womb, you're creating your eggs, which means that whatever was going on in your grandma, with your grandma at that time, was affecting the development of those eggs. So then you go and you have this baby, and this baby is a product of that lineage. So when I started to learn that, I was like, okay, this baby needs some healing in his gut, and he did have a lot of gut issues. So I started to learn how to have fermented foods in his diets, you know, and probiotics and prebiotics. I did a lot of massaging and therapies. Like, I mean, it was a lot.
But it was everything that you needed as a woman in that point of your life. If you think about that, your son really catapulted you into this beautiful flower. Like, he was the seed that said, hey, I'm planted now, and you need to water me, and you need to water you if we're gonna grow together. You know,
wow, that's really good. Yes.
Yeah, like think about it. I'm sitting here and I'm like, he literally changed your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the best, for the best.
For the best.
For your highest self. And he was only gonna be a reflection of you.
Yep.
And because you had that courage to change, I know that shit was hard. I know, coming from places that we have no idea how to eat clean, we don't even have finances to get food. We don't, like, coming from that, having the accessibility to these resources. And now having to create this healthy, healing, holistic world that no one ever taught us.
Right, right.
Now we're doing it ourselves.
Right.
Plus a baby, plus a husband.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
That's a big feat.
Yeah. No, it was, I definitely won't downplay it. It was definitely challenging. Even the community of people that I was around weren't living in that kind of lifestyle. So it was definitely doing it alone, learning. It was almost like he would navigate me, right? And there was one time where he was giving me a really hard day. He probably was like 3 years old because he was in a stroller. And what I would do is I would put on rollerblades and I would stroll him on the West Side Highway. We'd go to Chelsea Market so that he can sit down and stare at fans. Fans was his thing. And he would just sit there and I would have a moment to breathe while he just stared at the fans until it was time for him to have his tantrums again. And this one day, he just wouldn't stop. And so I ended up rollerblading in toward inland, and I ended up somewhere, I think it was like 24th Street, and there was a Kundalini yoga studio. And I looked in, and I had been doing Ashtanga yoga and Hatha yoga at that time, and I had already gotten my teacher certification, but I didn't really know about Kundalini yoga. I stepped into the studio, and I was like, hey, what is this? And Tyler all of a sudden stopped crying, and he sat down on the floor and pulled a book. He pulled a book off the shelf, sat down on the floor, and just started looking through the book. And I was like, is it okay if we just hang out for a little bit? He finally stopped crying. She's like, of course. And, they almost finished with the class. The lady who owns the studio come out. When I looked on the shelf, I grabbed the book, and I don't remember the name of the book, but I opened it, and it was about indigo children and how we are seeing a flow of children that were going to be called the indigo children. They were not going to be understood. People were going to say that they were hyper. People were going to say they were depressed, but they're not. They just are more tapped into an elevated consciousness, and the world isn't ready for them. And so it's going to feel really anxious, and it's going to feel really different. And I remember I sat down and started reading this book going, oh my God, that's Tyler. He's an indigo child. He is not understood. When he was born with his eyes wide open. He looked at all of us, and it was a birthing center, so you were all allowed there. My grandma was there, my titi was there, everyone was there, and everyone's like, he's scaring me. Like he would look right deep into your soul. So you're like, yeah, this kid came here from many lives, right? He came here. He marched to the beat of his own drum. Everyone that met him said that. He marched to the beat of his own drum, and he came, no doubt, to teach me how to be better and do better. And he was probably about, Cooper wasn't born yet. That's my youngest son. So he was probably about 7 years old when I went to a New Year's party. And at that New Year's party, I got drunk. And we left the party, and I had him in my arms, and I guess I must have picked him up in a way that almost choked him. And I think my husband at that point was like, enough, Yvette. Like, we just need you to go home and go to sleep. And I remember thinking, wow, they're just like ruining my fun. It wasn't that at all. That was the first time that I said, I need to revisit this relationship with alcohol. Now, he was 7. I didn't stop drinking until 2022. So it wasn't like at that time I was like, oh, okay, I'm done with alcohol. The relationship I had with alcohol became another journey for me. It was a very different journey because the relationship of motherhood helped me to learn the importance of taking care of self and recognizing that things are being done for us, not to us. But the relationship with alcohol was my go-to for numbing, for disconnecting. And I had been doing it since I was 12. So it wasn't anything that I ever thought, when I was 6 months pregnant with him, I went to a bar with a friend of mine, And I wanted to drink so bad that I started shaking and crying and begging her to let me drink. And she was like, as she's, my best friend Lisa, as she's smoking a cigarette and drinking martini, she said, Yvette, you can't, you're pregnant. I was like, just one. And I was so mad at her. I was like, fuck you, I'm leaving. And I left. And then as soon as I gave birth to him, I was drinking again. You know, it was like, and I didn't realize that alcohol was something that I needed to reevaluate in the relationship that I had with it. So
alcohol is a depressant. And I don't think a lot of us are reminded of this because we're giving it at such a young age, as it's fun, as it makes us looser, as all our friends are doing it, it's a party, but it is numbing, it's disassociation. It's literally a depressant. It's supposed to make you depressed. It allows you to numb, to not be in the reality, to not be present. I remember I haven't drank in years. I stopped drinking like a little bit after college because I remember I blacked out twice. And I didn't start drinking till like my junior year in college. All my friends were drinking, and I remember the first time I got really drunk, Yvette, I was throwing up. And I remember calling my teammates, and I was like, why do you guys like to do this? Like, it's disgusting. I feel like crap. The next day I couldn't move. Like, what is happening? But then after college, I found life was getting hard, and I would go out and get drunk, and I would let it sit and let it go. Like, I was just moving throughout the day, but I wasn't present. So I'm so glad you brought this idea up. So alcohol was another pivot that you had to face, because I want this to bring us to you becoming a holistic health coach. Because you becoming a holistic health coach, no more liquor, no more bad foods at all, mentally, physically changed, working out, your wellness game is up. Like, this girl has a six-pack. It inspires me every time I see her with a little bralette. I'm like, God, I need to go run. She runs marathons. I mean, this woman did a 360 life change. So now let's talk about you becoming this holistic coach, because becoming that holistic coach created Joule Body. It only didn't create Joule Body. Tyler, your son, was also a big reason why Joule Body was created, and I believe why you became a holistic health coach. So when was that decision that you were like, I'm going to become a holistic health coach and help people? It
goes right back to Tyler. So I needed to work so that we can get some money flowing in our household. And my neighbor, I went to FIT, I studied fashion, and he had a private men's fashion label, fashion company, whatever. And he hired me to work with him. And across the street was the preschool that Tyler would go to while I worked. So I would see him out the window walking, and it would make me sad. And this one day, we were taking the stuff from my boss's apartment to the office. And as I'm coming out of the building, I see Tyler walking, and I can see tears coming down his eyes. But he's not crying. He's crying, but not out loud, just tears. And he's walking the thing, and I was like, what the heck is going on with him? So I said to my boss, I said, can I just go and see what's going on with Tyler? And he said no. And I was like, okay, I'm going anyway. And they said, Tyler, you okay? And he just held me, and he started crying, and he wasn't okay. And so I told my boss, I said, I really need to take care of him. And he was like, if you do, you're fired. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm fired. Yeah. So I took my son out of school, went upstairs, brought him home. And my girlfriend that I used to go to the gym with, Equinox, came home, and I said, I just got fired. I said, I definitely need to go to boxing class. So we go to Equinox. The manager of Equinox comes over to me, and he's like, I've been watching you and your friend work out for a long time. I really want you to be one of our personal trainers. He's like, we have a training program. I was like, I don't give a fuck what you pay. I said, I just got fired, and I have to tell my husband, but at least if I have another job, I'll be okay. So I said, I'll take the job. That was it, $8 an hour. Equinox pays for you to do the training program. And I started becoming the go-to for prenatal, postnatal moms.
Of course.
And I would do workshops and, train them. there were parts of that journey, like just watching how hard these moms were working out and not seeing the results. And I worked men, so I used to start work at 5:30 in the morning. So we had like really type A men. And when I tell you I was a trainer that used to make men throw up, I was a trainer that worked you so hard. And at that time, because you know, for me, I was still not really connected spiritually. I was very much about the physical world, right? Physically, if you look good, then you're all good. And so for me, it was like, I have to work you hard and make sure that you get results. Well, the men were getting the results, but the women weren't getting the results that I thought they should for the amount of work that they were doing. So I started to study nutrition. Equinox put me through a nutrition school, and I started to think about what their habits were. So I had them journaling and just watching caffeine and sugar. Caffeine and sugar were, and then of course the wine at night, right? You had the wine at night, the caffeine and sugar in the morning.
We can all relate to this.
And I'm like, okay, these are the things that are hurting them. Let me make them their food and see how that goes. So I would make them food, put it in their fridge, and then when I would go back to their house to see what was going on, there was food still hanging out there. And what they said is that they would forget to eat. So I said, okay, let me find a way to make this better. I decided to put times of day on their food so that they knew they had food for after they dropped the kids off and were either getting ready to go to work. They had food for lunch. They had food to give them energy before the kids get home from school, food or something while they're making dinner, and then something before they went to bed. So that's how I lined it up: 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. What happened, they started to associate, like, okay, it's time for my 9 o'clock, it's time for my 12 o'clock. You just, when you're parenting or when you're in a career, whatever it is that you're doing, when your lifestyle is busy, you really don't have time to think too much. You want things to just, especially when it comes to something, if you're not passionate about food or nutrition, you just, here, just do this and it's gonna make you, it'll be good for you. So I created this program. What I did when I went to the nutrition program is I started to learn, and this was that gut-brain connection. This is when it all began. I started to learn that there were certain chemicals, certain ingredients that when it hit the body, it affected your mind. And if you think about alcohol, if you think about caffeine, if you think about sugar, those are really great examples of like, oh, I eat a cookie, that made me so happy. I ate chocolate, that made me feel satisfied. You know, it's like, I drank caffeine, that gave me energy. So you start to think about, oh, okay, well, why would I have something that's gonna give me energy right before I'm about to go to bed? Or why would I have, you know, tryptophan in the morning when I know that's going to help me relax and put me to sleep? So I started to just categorize what are certain ingredients that you should have certain days, and Joule Body that was what Joule Body was about, giving your body what it needs when it needs it.
Yes.
And I named it Joule. Again, at that time, I felt like everything was about energy. When I thought about energy at that time, I meant having the energy to get through your day. I did not mean that spiritual side of energy.
Yes.
So here's Joule Body. It gives your body what it needs when it needs it. Then, as I was diving into that next phase of healing and evaluating my relationship with alcohol, my son was going to therapy, and the therapist called me in. He asked my husband and I to come in, and he wanted to give us his assessment after working with him for over a year. When I tell you we paid this therapist top dollars because he was one of the best child therapists in New York City. He said, "Yvette, you're the problem." I was like, do you have any fucking idea how much I've sacrificed? Do you have any idea how much work I have done? I'm the problem. And he's like, yeah. My husband, who always has my back, said, that's not fair. She is a great mother, and she does everything for our family. He said, that was my assessment. Do with it what you want. I gaslit the doctor. I left there. Probably a year later, I said, I need to go to therapy. And I went to therapy. And I went to therapy for 3 years. And as I'm going to therapy, I realized what he meant by I was the problem. I was still carrying a lot of trauma from my own life, and I was burdening my son with it. Even though I was way better, I still had a lot more work to do. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I said to my husband, we gaslit the therapist that we paid a shit ton of money. We basically told him he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. And I said, I was the problem. I was the one who was causing my son to be anxious, to, struggle with depression. I had high expectations. Imagine I made so many changes. I wanted him to I didn't let him breathe. I was always demanding more and more of him. Yes. Every time he was able to do something, I was like, okay, ready for the next? Okay, let's just keep going. And I was diagnosed a few years ago after, again, evaluating alcohol and getting rid of that. I had a full brain evaluation. I have ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, childhood PTSD, and learning disabilities. And I said, how the hell do you parent a child that's on the spectrum when that's how your brain is just in constant chaos?
Right.
And so if you know about spectrum children, they require consistency. They need to know what's gonna happen next. He was in constant chaos because I was like, oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that.
But this is the part of healing that people need to understand. Like, Yvette, your journey is a journey of understanding why yoga came to you when it came to you, why therapy came to you, why you came to you. It's ancestral. It's a long journey. Healing isn't overnight. I'm so grateful that the doctor said that to you because he inspired you to go to therapy, right? So now the spiritual journey starts. So each part of your life led you to the next, and you allowed it to, with how challenging it was, with how hard I know it was to sit with yourself and be like, damn, I am the problem. It's hard.
Yeah.
Especially when you're mothering, you mothers do so much. You sacrifice so much, you're so selfless, and then somebody's telling you you're the problem? Like, it's not easy. But I think there's beauty in that because then she creates Joule Body. So tell us about Joule Body. What are these bars? There's also teas. The tea is available now at Erewhon. So if you're in Los Angeles, wherever Erewhon is located, you can have Joule Body. I've eaten it. I'm obsessed. One thing that I love about Joule Body is that it's not only super clean and energizing, but it tastes good. Like, when healthy things don't taste good to me, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Like, I've never been that healthy girl.
Yeah.
My sister has.
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go. When I tried these, I was like, oh, I can do this.
I love that.
I can have these bars every day.
I think what's really cool what you said is that as we do as humans, we think that everything is linear, right? It's like, okay, I had this baby, I went natural and I heal, and then it's like, but it's not. And I think what we recognize. So I started incorporating human design, and so I just did a chart for a client yesterday, and this client is looking for love, and so I know a little bit of background of this client, so I was like, okay, so we have to look at the areas that are the gates in the human design that are in alignment with love. And there's parts where, so if you know human design has open and closed, or defined and undefined, not open and closed, defined and undefined. And so when it's not defined, it means that you are being influenced by your environment. So it's beautiful, right? It's like this open channel. It just allows you to feel energetically what does it mean, and depending on what the environment offered you, that's where your belief starts to develop. Now, if it's defined, it means you have an understanding of it. So when I looked at this client, she had 2 gates, 10 and 15, that were not defined. And then when I looked at what she had experienced in her life, the belief of self-love and the belief that humans deserve to be loved unconditionally were undefined, which meant that whatever happened in her life was going to help her identify what those 2 things mean. Well, a lot of trauma happened to her. And so her belief that humans were to be loved unconditional was shut down. Her belief was, no, there's going to be conditions. You can't be trusted. The belief in self-love as being a priority was shut down because of the amount of trauma she experienced. So now we show up in life, and this is, I believe that we have blueprints. We all are looking for these roadmaps. And so now you have this roadmap that took some pivots because of what happened environmentally that caused this belief system to be created. And so that linear pathway that humans think is the way isn't. Now there's like deviations, and now you're going all different directions. And so for me, it's like, okay, I needed to heal my physical body, right? I needed to heal all of those physical aspects of me that broke after giving birth. But then I needed to heal that emotional body. I needed to start to work into that space. And alcohol was a big suppressant. It was making me believe that everything was okay.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't. And so when I formulated Joule Body products, I was looking at what would be ingredients that I can put into something that is accessible for you at any point, whether you're in your car, at work, working out, whatever, and you can provide your body and it can feed your soul.
Yes.
And so when the designer Michael K.
They're
designed
so well
this,
designed. They're incredible.
He heard me. He asked me a lot of questions, and he heard me. And what we wanted to do was give your food a face. We wanted you to like look at her and feel her and know that she had your back, that she was looking out for you, right? And she was going to provide your body what it needs so that your mind can feel good.
And each bar allows you to feel relaxed, energized, empowered. Because of the superfoods that you have in these bars. These are essential. These are so essential, and they taste good. Your kids are gonna like these too. That's the thing that I love about this the most, because sometimes I can be like a child when it comes to food. If it's not good, I'll force myself to eat it nutritiously because where I am now in my life. But it's like a force. This I don't force. This I take, I go. I'm like, okay, it's a part of my day. I'm not overthinking it because I enjoy this food. Also, I know how it's gonna make me feel afterwards. This is why I believe in your products.
Thank you.
I also believe in your teas. I'm a tea girl till the day I die. Tea are these herbal supplements that just heal us naturally. I've never been a caffeinated type of girl. I've never really loved coffee. So that was just a gift that I had. But your teas are energizing. They're calming. They're empowering. And I think that's the theme of Girl, We Got This. Your products literally add to our brand. Like, it is who we are. Your product is made for the woman, for the mother that has gone through these hardships, for the women that have gone from the hood to Malibu, the moms that have really had to change their life to give their child the best life.
I think that's the other thing that starts to happen. For me, meditation starts to come into play, right? Because now I'm trying to pivot from alcohol, but I still need something to ground me, something. And meditation starts to come into play. And, you know, listening to people like Abraham Hicks and my best friend shares with me The Secret. And so these things start to come on my pathway, and I start to think, wait, what do you mean my thoughts create my reality? And it took me a long time to realize your thoughts create your reality because life is your perception. No one perceives life the way you do. No one sees you the way you see yourself. And so when you start to think of, okay, what is it that I want in my life? What is it that I truly desire? And so you take this girl who grew up in the hood, in the projects, homeless for a few years, did that whole journey, finds her way into Tribeca, where I start to see a different life, live in a different vibration, right? Because if you think of the frequency of the hood, the frequency there is so low. You're in survival all the time. And so then you start, and then it's like shifting. Everything I did, every time I healed something, I noticed there was a shift in my environment and a shift. And now I live in the canyon of Malibu. It's like, city urban girl in the canyon of Malibu.
But it all makes sense because that canyon is peace and beauty and calm. That's what you are. That's who you've become.
That's who I've become.
And with that being said, I want to give you your flowers, Evie, because if there's any woman that deserves their flowers,
Thank you.
It's you.
Thank
like
you.
from the bottom of my heart.
Thank
Nona
you.
Washington of Mixed Girls Flowers created these beautiful bouquets for these incredible women that we have on this season. And I just want to say thank you for being brave enough to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I need to change. I want to say, I'm so proud of you for not choosing to have another abortion. You just followed your intuition. Now it's okay. Look, I always say it's your body, it's your choice. I had a miscarriage one time in my life. My sister almost had an abortion, and they're natural. We're not ready. But you followed your gut because you knew this was not what you wanted at this point in your life. And this gift from God changed your life. So shout out to you, Tyler. We love you and we thank you for being that guiding force.
I do have to call out my Cooper because Cooper
is special.
Cooper, I go in and I'm like, all right, God, please, I just need one more to show me that I know how to parent. And this boy came into our lives and he surprised us. But man, it was like he just goes with the flow. Like it's so but again, it goes with a mother begins a whole new healing journey when she gives birth to her first child.
Yes.
And that healing that I went through with Tyler allowed me to be so much more present and so much more clear on parenting.
Yes.
So, my baby boy.
I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. I am so honored to share your story.
Thank you.
And thank you for being an example for all of us that don't come from much but have aspirations and dreams to change our environment, to be the change in our family, in our ancestral heritage.
That's
beautiful.
Yes.
You are her.
Yeah.
And if there's any woman in this season that is here to tell you, we got this, sis.
Yeah.
Girl, we got this.
You got this. Trust me. Trust me.
We got this. Joule Body can be bought on joulebody.com. Also, they'll be available in Erewhon. They're delicious. They literally save my day. They are the superfood that keeps me running. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate
you. Thank you. I love you.
I love you.